Good morning. Today I want to share my assessment about the Pakistan Army, the Pakistan military per se. The reason I am doing this, there are two reasons. Number one, the relations after the developments in Kashmir between India and Pakistan, they have hit a new low. There are already reports that the Pakistan Army has moved certain troops to the line of control, and they have moved equipment and other things to the line of control. And the second reason is that a lot of talk is going on our television channels, on our social networks, where plenty of veterans are participating. And the impression that one gets out of all that is that Pakistan Army is nothing more than an irritant. It's a cakewalk that we'll just start one day whenever the political leadership gives the signal. We'll start from Delhi and we'll reach Lahore. Nothing of that sort will happen. And to top it all, unfortunately I would say, we already have senior army officers who are giving statements which actually are similar to what the veterans are saying on television. We recently had the Vice Chief of Army Staff, General Anbu, who retired last week. One day before he retired, he speaks to the media and he says that Indian Army has a capability for limited response. Now nobody asked him, what is this limited response? I mean, I've been doing this for 4 decades. I've been scratching my head. Now what is this limited response he's talking about? Because there's nothing called limited response. Then now, the real reason why I thought I'll share my assessments with the people is, we have the Army Chief himself, General Bipin Rawat. He has told a newspaper referring to the Pakistan Army that when you don't have confidence in the abilities of your conventional forces to deter the adversary, you start using the nuclear bogey. Now this is a serious thing coming from an Army Chief. First of all, I have not heard any Pakistan serving officer, less their chief, talk about nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons have been spoken of and written off by Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan and some of their ministers. But honestly, they don't matter because they are not the ones who control the nuclear weapons in that country. What matters is, what is the Pakistan Army or the Pakistan military saying? They haven't raised the bogey. Now coming to why I say under these circumstances where we have the veterans, we have the serving leadership, top military leadership talking like this, why do I say that we need to sit back and think about Pakistan Army and their military as a professional force, whether it is or it is not? It's important. Why it is important is that whenever you do an assessment of the enemy, whenever you do a war appreciation, you never run down your enemy. You never underestimate. In fact, what you do is you give more capabilities to the adversary so that your planning is done better for war. And we seem to be doing the reverse of it. To my mind, to be a professional army or a professional military, 3 things are important. Number one, they should have a clear defined threat, which in their case is very clearly defined India. So no ambiguity on that. The second thing, equally important, they have to maintain consistently, regularly, a balance at both the operational level, which is at the level of nuclear weapons, and at the strategic level, which is the nuclear weapons, and the operational level of war, which is where the conventional war fighting happens. So we have to now assess whether the Pakistan Army or Pakistan military has been able to maintain this dual balance at the strategic level and balance at the operational level, because this is very important. And the third thing for any professional military is, are they keeping abreast of the new technologies that are getting inserted into the war theatre? And most of these technologies have been done by India. We have introduced the ballistic missiles, we introduced the cruise missiles, we introduced sea-based deterrence, we introduced the ballistic missile defense and so on. Now their challenge is to make sure that the balance at both the strategic and the operational level, it does not get imbalanced. Now this is what I have studied for 4 decades, and this is what I want to share, how beautifully they have done it. But before I do that, let me say something very clearly. A lot of people will jump and tell me that, look, you see the means by what they are doing. They are stealing things. Look, at the end of the day, like the famous saying, all is fair in love and war. The important thing is whether they've been able to bring the capabilities to the theater or not. Leave it to the politicians, leave it to the analyst to talk about how those capabilities came there. To the military man, the important thing is what is in the theater and how do I dovetail that into my planning, period. So at the strategic level, we did our nuclear test, first test in 1974. The world knows that in 1984, we had a covert nuclear capability. Even if it was not a deterrence at that time, we had it. So when the Brass Act happened, Operation Brass Act in 1987-88, then General Ziaul Haq, who was the ruler of Pakistan, he gave an interview to Time magazine where he said that we also have this capability. We also have the nuclear covert capability. Now, why did he do that? He did it to send a clear message to the world and especially India that, look, I have a balance at the strategic level of war. Similarly, in 1998, May 1998, we did our nuclear tests. Enormous pressure was put by the Americans. Allurements were given to Pakistan to desist from doing their own tests. But their Army Chief General Jahangir Karamat was absolutely clear. Irrespective of the consequences, I will do the tests. And he did them. Why? Because he had to maintain the balance at the strategic level. That getting imbalanced would have affected the conventional balance, would have affected everything. His entire security strategy. It is another matter that he spoke to the then Prime Minister, his Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, and he sought a formal role in governance for the Pakistan Army. But this is a different story. I'll come to this in the end. So continuing with this aspect of having accomplished, as I have mentioned, the balance at the strategic level, they have done, to my mind, an exceptional job of maintaining the balance at the conventional or the actual war fighting level. And how did they do this? They had 2 major shortcomings and they overcame those. The first shortcoming is their numbers. The Pakistan Army is 6 lakhs strength. Indian Army is 13 lakhs. Now it can be argued that Indian Army has to cater for the other front, the front against China. So we need more numbers. Now why I am hesitant to take this point is because bulk of our assets and the entire attention of our military leadership, especially Army leadership and the Air Force leadership, is completely on Pakistan. So we actually bring so much more numbers, so much more equipment. Now how do they balance this? This was a big challenge. So what they did was, the expertise that they gained during the invasion of the Soviet Union in Afghanistan, the sub-conventional war, the support to terrorism, the expertise in that, which their ISI had gained, they shifted that entire expertise to the eastern theatre in Jammu and Kashmir. And what started was the proxy war. They started fighting by proxy. So they made up their short numbers Again, irrespective of how they did it, I'm not getting into the ethics of morality of it. But as a military strategy, they balance their imbalanced numbers by this use of proxy war by the ISI doing this. But here is where professionalism comes in. They also maintained their capability to fight at the conventional level. Now, how did they do that? They have very clearly 3 defined verticals. We don't have those. They have the Strategic Plans Division, which is in charge, again reports to the Pakistan Army Chief, the head of the Strategic Plans Division. He is responsible for everything nuclear, from the weaponization, from till the how much fissile material they need and how many bombs they should have, and its operationalization. He is responsible for it. It's a clear vertical. Then they have their DG military operations, who is responsible for the conventional war. Now, the brilliant thing in their case, which is very important, is because both these, the military operations branch and the SPD, they report to one authority, the army chief, in this case General Bajwa. They have been able to maintain a seamless transition of a conventional war to the next level, which is the nuclear crisis. Now, why is this important? It is very important because this is where the deterrence lies. The deterrence is not showing your nuclear weapons. The deterrence is to have a very clear, demonstrated and identified seamless transition from the nuclear war from the conventional war to the nuclear level. And they've done it. And the third vertical, again a very clear vertical, is their ISI activities, the proxy war that they've been continuing. So this was their one problem of less numbers, and how do they make it up? They've done it well. Their second problem, perennial problem, has been their geography. If you see their geography, it's an elongated nation. Not only that, most of their high value assets are close to the border with India. So what do? So what they did was, right from the beginning, they placed a special emphasis on the air defense network. In fact, it is Pakistan which first created the Air Defense Command. I mean, we did it decades later. So they were very clear that we need a very well woven, a very robust air defense network, and they created that. Then they were faced with this problem, another problem in 2004, when we spoke of our cold start doctrine. So then they came up with this response of full nuclear spectrum, where they said, all right, we have the tactical nuclear weapons now. Nobody seriously believes, or nobody seriously should believe, that they're gonna use the nuclear weapons, tactical nuclear weapons, because they have high densities of populations right there. I mean, why will they use that? And why will they maintain all these years of balance at the conventional level of war if they have to use the nuclear weapons? So they kept the ambiguity. They announced that, look, we have the tactical nuclear weapons, but we are not no first use. So the ambiguity has been kept. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Even in the case of India, when we say we have no first use, I mean, no country's declaratory policy and employment policy can be sacrosanct. It will depend on how the campaign is going. It depends upon so many other factors, whether you use nuclear weapons or you don't use nuclear weapons. So the point I am making is, the very fact, all the years, it is not now, all the years go back to the first war of Kashmir, 47-49, when the ceasefire line was created. The Pakistanis have never lost, I must emphasize, they have never lost in the western sector. whether it was the first war, whether it was 1965, whether it was 1971. In 1971, there was a give and take of territory in the western sector. And the ceasefire line, it came to be known, it acquired a new name called line of control. If we had beaten them, like we keep claiming, decisively, then the military line would have been obliterated. Where was the need for the military line to be there? It never happened. So, I mean, this is a hallmark of professionalism. So they have always maintained a balance at the operational level of war. Now, take the case of ballistic missiles. We, under our program of ballistic missile program in 1984, we introduced our series of missiles. We did the Prithvi test, we did the Agni test in 1989. They were taken a bit by surprise. So what did they do? Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto, she offered us a zero missile status, which we rejected. In the meantime, in less than 4 years, then Army Chief, then General Aslam Beg, he announced that, look, not only have I acquired the Hatab series of ballistic missiles, I've got the production line also. I mean, you can keep talking where it came from. The fact of the matter is, it is there. So they got that. So anything that you talk of, they have always ensured that a balance was there. The very fact that the proxy war we have not been able to defeat in this 30 years is that we have not been able to deter them. I will take you back to 1990. In 1990, when we inducted large numbers of army troops in Jammu and Kashmir theatre, there was a panic in Pakistan. Their army chief then, General Janjua, he approached America that, look, these guys have inducted large numbers, so the forces in being are there and they can do a sudden attack. I mean, then of course the Americans, they came into the picture. Then we had that famous Robert Gates mission, and then the confidence building measures, they all were done. The point I'm making is, in 1990, they were a bit anxious about our large numbers in the theatre. Today they are not. So we have to ask ourselves, they are not primarily because they are not deterred by our conventional preparedness, period. Unless we will not do that, we will keep losing our numbers, we will keep losing our boys to CI ops. It's unending, it's unwinnable, period. Not only that, today they are actually confident that they can take on India. And what is the reason for confidence? Again, there are two reasons. One is their interoperability, which has been growing with the People's Liberation Army. This whole thing started around 2011. You know, for example, we recently had the exercises, the Shaheen series between the two air forces, the Pakistan Air Force and PLAF. This was all about interoperability, and for those who would not know what is interoperability means that the two services, they work together for a common mission, for a common objective, war objective. And how do you do that? There are three clear defined steps in that also, and they have accomplished it. The first step is commonality of equipment. Today there is commonality of equipment. I mean, they are making JF-17, they are not talking about Block 3. Unlike us, they have the Pakistan Aeronautic Complex in Canberra, which is run entirely by the Pakistan Air Force. They manage it, so they are able to control the timelines. I mean, one of our recently retired vice chief was on record saying that perhaps in terms of ammunition, perhaps in terms of spare parts, the Pakistanis are better than us, which is a fact. So the first thing is commonality of equipment. The other thing is the need for timely upgrades, the need for ammunition, for long war or whatever war has been decided in their appreciation, and the need for spare parts. So all this is being provided by the Chinese to them. And the third step in interoperability is understanding each other's doctrine, doing a joint appreciation of the enemy for a particular theater and see how we can do our missions together. And that is precisely they've been doing for the last 8 years. Why do we forget all these things? Now add to interoperability another factor which has come out of 2013. In 2013, when Chinese said that the China-Pakistan economic corridor will be the flagship of the One Belt, One Road, they actually committed to a much larger role, a friendship role with Pakistan, which went much beyond simply helping them maintain a balance at the strategic or the nuke level or the balance at the conventional level of war. Now we are looking, because their assets are there, the Chinese assets are there, Chinese interests are there, Chinese prestige is there. One Belt, One Road is it's instituted in the constitution, in the Communist Party constitution, and it is the pet project of President Xi Jinping. This explains why President Xi Jinping has publicly said to Prime Minister Imran Khan when he went and visited recently China, he told him that we will support your core concern. Now core concern is Kashmir, which has been their core concern right from the inception of Pakistan. Now what basically that means is, what he's saying is that look, we are responsible now for your sovereignty. We are responsible that you don't lose any territory. In other words, the military relationship has gone many steps ahead, many steps higher than interoperability. What stops today the PLA from sharing its humongous capabilities, non-kinetic capabilities like cyber, like electronic warfare, like space warfare? I mean, you read the American literature, you see the statements which are coming out from the American military leadership, how much they are concerned, if not worried, how much they are anxious about the PLA capability in these areas. So what stops them for sharing all this? Now we are looking at a possibility, or rather a probability, where you can take it for granted in your appreciation that the non-kinetic capability of China is available to Pakistan military, and the improbability has grown to a level, a very high level of being able to together meet common mission objectives. Now will anybody tell me, if this is not professionalism, what exactly is professionalism? Why is it that our veterans, I mean, I am also paying for their pensions. Why is it that they sit on television channels and they just spew venom? Either they do not understand all this, which I think is perhaps the case with most of them, or they simply just want to ignore it. Either way, it is bad. It is not helping the people of India. I mean, at least for God's sake, if you do not want to talk about it, if you don't understand it, stop participating in these debates. Let the analysts go there and participate in the debates like this. Why are you raising the temperatures unnecessarily? Where is it taking us? Do the Chinese do that? No, they don't do it. It's another matter, unfortunate matter, that the people, the other side also, television channel, are quite the same. But come back to where I started. I don't expect the highest level of army leadership to give these sort of statements, because it does not help our domestic leadership. It does not really help his own command. It does not help India. Thank you.